Greetings, nutrition-interested truth seekers. That is what we are, trying to figure out carnivore, ex-vegan, vegan diet, what is best. You know what I believe, but this is a video that I'm very excited to make because I haven't seen it done on YouTube yet, and I think it sheds some light in a serious way on this topic. One of the big conundrums that we are in with the ex-vegan versus carnivore versus vegan scene is that nutrition science has gotten to the point where there are published studies that involve one person in the study, which clearly doesn't prove anything. And then there are studies with thousands and tens of thousands of people, but some people say that you need mechanistic evidence, and epidemiology is a hoax, which most nutrition experts would not say. But what I'm trying to say here is that there isn't a scientific consensus anymore. We can't simply go to science and research to prove anything, because there are research studies showing that ketogenic diets, for instance, help with some brain trauma and also help with treating Crohn's disease symptoms. And then I also got people messaging me today that says that their Crohn's disease has been in full remission on a vegan diet. I have studies showing that cancer and heart disease and osteoporosis and Alzheimer's is reduced on a vegan diet. And then you can find a study from Weston A. Price that proves the opposite. So that's the state that we're in 2019. Thus, instead of simply looking at the evidence and studies, which, by the way, keeping it real, the vast majority of the evidence and studies in the medical nutritional field definitely points to a plant-based diet. You can't argue that, and that's why people like the American Dietetics Association, American Heart Association, and the Harvard School of Public Health not only say that veganism is safe, they all advocate and recommend a high plant, low animal product consumption diet. And that's not just because they're opinion man, that's because there's more evidence showing that eating more plants and less meat is better versus eating a ketogenic or a carnivore diet. That's just the facts, guys. And if you're a carnivore watching this, maybe it's just because there hasn't been enough studies promoting ketogenic and meat eating and carnivore studies. Okay, maybe we'll all be wrong in 5 years when the studies come out. But as of now, with over 100 years of published medical nutritional research, eating more plants is the way to go, and you can't deny that because the smartest, most comprehensive nutrition research organizations pretty much all advocate for eating more plants and less meat. But I'm open to admitting that there's studies that can prove everything these days, so you can't only go based off the studies. What this video is about is actually analyzing the professionals and the people that both sides and all these different tribes look up to. On the vegan side, you got Caldwell Esselstyn, Colin Campbell, Garth Davis, Michelle McMacken, Walter Willett, Neil Barnard, Joel Kahn, and the list goes on. And then on the carnivore side, you really have Bart K, who is not a medical doctor, has never treated patients, but is a researcher and teacher who has reviewed and published studies before, purely in the research field, not in treating patients. And then you have Dr. Shawn Baker, who's been on the Joe Rogan podcast. He kind of started the big movement around carnivore on social media. He is a surgeon. He's a medical doctor, went through medical school. He is a surgeon, an orthopedic surgeon. Again, not a... Well, yeah, he does treat patients, of course. He has orthopedic patients if you break a limb or a tendon or something like that. And then who else do you have on the carnivore side? You have Paul Saladino, who got his, went through his medical school and finished about 2 years ago, I think. So he doesn't have that much experience, although he does have he is a physician. And I am going to not expose, because this is all public information that I found on YouTube, but compare the histories of some of these carnivore doctors and researchers compared to the plant-based ones, and this is gonna shock most of you. So first let's talk about the carnivores, okay? Bart K. Bart K, I'm gonna insert this video. Why don't you watch this real quick?
But the problem I ran into was with, I guess, other academics not wanting me to stand up in front of fresh-faced, fee-paying students and tell them the truth about physiology and pathophysiology. What they wanted was someone to stand up and parrot the lines they've been saying for the last 20 years. And those lines are the ones that are bought and paid for by the pharmaceutical companies.
Ah.
For example, LDL causes heart disease and you should take statins to sort that out. So, when I was dealing with pre-med students as a lecturer in cardiovascular pathophys, and when I was standing up and saying, no, that was kind of annoying, the powers that be. So while the law protects an academic such as myself and says that he or she can say whatever they want to, actually, whether that's popular or not, they have ways of making your life miserable. And they did. And so finally, after 17 years in academia, at the end of the academic year in 2016, I was living in the UK at the time. I said, actually, that's enough. I will not be renewing my contract. Thank you very much. I'm out of here. And I moved home to sunny, beautiful Nelson in New Zealand, where I now live modestly, because I don't any longer have the academic salary, and I'm building a YouTube empire, and I have a Patreon channel for those that want to support that.
Right, you have a YouTube channel and Patreon.
So essentially what he said is that he was advocating and teaching certain principles to the students who were coming into that community, and Bart K's professional peers all thought that he was teaching them something that was so inaccurate that they made his life miserable, which forced him to leave that community and flee to another country. Now, Bart says that's all because all his other peers were bought off by the pharmaceutical industry. That is one theory. Or Bart, is it potentially because what they thought that you were teaching to young students was really dangerous and inaccurate according to the research and according to their experience? Of course, Bart K, when he's talking about it, is going to say that they were just completely corrupted and that Bart was teaching the truth and all doctors are evil, and so they didn't want him teaching the truth to kids, and they want to create doctors that are just pumping pharmaceuticals and not helping people. Is there a level of corruption in that industry and medical field? Absolutely. But I can see how sure you can trust Bart in just thinking that everything he was saying was true and his peers knew what he was saying is true, but they just didn't want him to preach the truth. Or maybe they thought what he was saying was really dangerous, which is why they made his life hard and he decided to leave to another country and start a Patreon instead. Again, I don't know, you don't know, I'm just giving you the facts and you can choose what path you think. By the way, Bart K is open about having bipolar, mental health issues, which again, I feel bad about, but just giving you the whole picture of who this person is that you guys are trusting with medical and nutritional advice. Next, we have Dr. Shawn Baker. Orthopedic surgeon. He went through his residency, he went to the military and did orthopedic work there. When he came back from the military and started working in just a practice in the United States, he got into lifestyle medicine, and he believes that a carnivore diet and eating meat and no plants is really good for recovery and healthy for people and patients who have issues. And so he started working with his patients more. You know, a typical doctor's visit, it is common, especially like in an orthopedic type setting, to kind of just quickly figure out what's wrong and then get out of there, the doctor, and they go move on to the next thing. And he started taking what was normally like a 10-minute consultation with patients into a 25 to 30 minute, because he was putting in more effort into trying to teach them about diet and nutrition, and again, promoting carnivore diets to the patients. And he claims that the hospital that he was working for and his boss or manager was getting upset that he was spending more time with his patients, whereas they could make more money if he went through it quicker. This is, again, what he claims they were upset about, and that they wanted him to just go through it faster, and they started to get angry at him. He then, all of a sudden, got a notice that he is up for peer review, which means when a bunch of your peers and doctors who are watching you practice think that you are practicing inappropriately and harming patients potentially with either bad information or bad surgeries, and he actually went to court because he had more malpractice surgeries, like faulty surgeries where things went wrong during cutting people open, than the quota for the surgeons at that hospital. Now, which is really scary and dangerous, like meaning he might be underqualified for what he's doing. But he claims in the video, which I linked down below, that the reason he had a higher quota is actually because he was doing 2 or 3 more times more surgeries than the average doctor. He said in a year, an average surgeon might do 100 and he was doing 500. Thus, the number of faulty surgeries that are allowed, he exceeded it per year because he was doing more surgeries. Now that does make sense to me, but do I believe him? I don't know. We have to trust him that he's being honest, but remember, this is a video that he's making about trying to defend himself against this. So it's really hard to know if he's telling the truth or not, but that is his explanation of why he had more faulty surgeries than the average doctor in his hospital, and that his peers got together and decided to send him to court for malpractice under peer review that he was incompetent. Now, both Bart K and Shawn Baker are both making the argument that they were being criticized and ostracized by their communities because they were actually doing great jobs and telling the truth, but making their hospitals or academic association, in terms of Bart K, because he didn't work at a hospital, that they were making them less money by preaching the truth, and so they were victimized. That is the case of both of these independent carnivore people. Instead of admitting or surrendering that the group of peers that was criticizing them might have actually been accurate, that they were being dangerous. Of course, in the videos that they make, they're going to defend themselves, but I'm just giving you the history here. It went to state court because with the peer-reviewed stuff, because Shawn Baker said, no, I'm a good surgeon, people are conspiring against me, essentially, and he lost, and he got his medical license revoked. And it was devastating to him. He said he thought about killing himself. He had to take his kids out of the school that they were in. I mean, he lost his house. I mean, these are serious ramifications to someone who claims he had an amazing record in the medical world and was loved by his patients and peers. For this to happen and going to court for months, he said maybe even a year it was going on, for him to just be a victim and he was great the whole time and everyone just wasn't understanding and listening to the situation and he's just an absolute victim, I call bullshit. Again, I don't know. Maybe these are 2 people of examples who have just been absolutely victimized and they're great people giving the best information. Or a group of peers and the law was correct and they weren't. Again, I don't know. But Shawn Baker was advocating carnivore diets to his patients. He had more faulty surgeries than were allowed and got his medical license revoked. He then, a few years later, and he made a recent video only a few months ago, that he reapplied for his medical license, I guess took some more tests, gave examples of his history, and they gave him his medical license back, but he cannot practice independently, and he has to spend a few years practicing under a more senior surgeon in order to make sure that he knows what the fuck he's doing. So he has his medical license back, but he cannot practice independently as of now. So yeah, those are the two main carnivore advocates who have professional credentials that people like Drew Morgan and Elise, who's been on Shawn Baker's podcast, are advocating for. Now, again, I'll say for the last time, and then I'll go on to comparing them to the vegan doctors. Maybe they were victimized. Maybe they didn't deserve that treatment. That's up for you, I guess, to decide, because we'll never know, but that's what happened. Now look at the plant-based doctors. Caldwell Esselstyn, main cardiologist for many, many years at the Cleveland Clinic, which is like the highest cardiology unit, I think, in the United States, has written many books, has a thriving business because his diet and his practice is so successful. He has many provable photos in his books of reversing coronary artery disease through a plant-based diet without using stents or medications. I'm in communication with Shawn Baker, and I asked him recently, because we're messaging, can you give me an example of a cardiologist reversing coronary artery disease, which is when the plaque builds up in your arteries so it takes off the blood and you die from a heart attack. I said, we have a million examples of that being treated holistically through a plant-based diet without medication. Can you give me one example where that issue of cardiovascular disease has been cured and reversed through a meat or ketogenic diet? He said, no, I cannot give you that information. He said, I have friends who are doing that now, but they don't have anything published and no studies yet. I mean, it's crazy. If that was real, that you could treat that with meat, it would be out there. Caldwell Esselstyn has had those photos and examples for decades. So his success was so great that he has written many books, he's spoken all over the world, and he even has like yearly 3-day events where he educates people on this. You have Joel Kahn, who has been who's been plant-based for 40 years. He runs the Kahn Institute, where he successfully treats people with coronary artery disease in the exact way I just said, without using medications, without using stents, in some cases, all through plant-based diet. That has been so successful that he has been on the Joe Rogan podcast as well to debate his research, and he also has a thriving business because he does so well and makes good money because it works. He has many restaurants, vegan restaurants that are complementary to the nutritional advice he gives to his patients. I mean, who else? Literally, find me a sketchy vegan doctor, I guess is what I'm saying. John McDougall. A lot of people criticize John McDougall that he's kind of crazy these days. He's an old man, but he's been a practicing doctor for so many decades. He's been hired on to be the head physician at massive corporations, like in Hawaii at a sugar plantation, in order to be the main doctor for like tens of thousands of workers or something crazy like that. Find me a medical doctor who's actually seeing patients with a sketchy past. I haven't noticed any. And all these people are actually treating patients and getting results. And you have Shawn Baker, who's an orthopedic surgeon, which is not a cardiologist or a physician, and then who has a really sketchy past and had his medical license revoked. And then you have Paul Saladino, who has only just started his medical career. I think he says he sees patients for psychiatry, not for cardiology, and he's only been doing it a couple years, and now he's mainly going towards YouTube and Patreon again. And then you have Bart K, who has never seen any patients but is recommending things in order to treat people's diseases, and had to flee his own country and his academic community because they were beating up on him so much that he was giving his students bad information. Whereas all these vegan doctors are successful, have examples of treating patients, have so much science to back it up, and have thriving businesses because what they do works. Neil Barnard, again, thriving business, Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, influential all over the country and world, speaks, has many books. They're not sketchy. All these carnivores are sketchy. So again, I'm open to be proving wrong. This is slightly speculation. Maybe all these carnivore educators were just victims. You be the judge. You be the judge who to trust. Much love, Dream Extreme.